Hello and welcome to this webinar on the One America Coalition, One America Registry. This is a coalition of 50+ organizations, including the Charter for Compassion, ACLU, J Street, NAACP New York, and others to preempt the threat of a Muslim registry. I am Reed Price, the coordinator for the Charter for Compassion International, which is the host for today's webinar. This session is being recorded, and everyone who signed up will receive a report of what's being shared today with links and references for further action. Please let us know if you have a comment or question. You can write it in the chat box, which if you're using a desktop computer or a notebook, can be accessed at the bottom of your screen. And please direct your question to Imam Malik or Marilyn Turkovich, or you can select everyone in the field that's provided in that chat box. We'll do our best to answer the questions on this call. However, if there's not enough time, we will provide responses in the report. We'll save the chat. The idea of the One America Coalition, One American Registry belongs to Imam Muhaddid. Imam Malik Muhaddid is an American Muslim imam, a producer, an author, a nonprofit entrepreneur. He is president of Sound Vision, America's oldest Muslim educational charity. Imam Muhaddid has been selected 6 times as one of the world's 500 most influential Muslims in the world. And it is my honor to turn over the microphone to Imam Malik. Imam.
Well, good morning and good afternoon, based on wherever you are. And maybe good evening to some of the people from around the world. Presentation today is going to be focused on 10 things you can do to liberate America from fear, hate, and anger. And as you know, it is rising not only in America, but around the world. And there are a strange manifestation of this fear, hate, and anger. For example, just landed back to Chicago from London, where I was in a conference, and I will share more detail of it, except that when I was leaving America 5 days ago, plane was all full. When I was coming back, it was 2/3 empty. You can have any seat of your choice. And in the conference of academician at the London Queen Mary University Law School, I proposed that we do the second session in Washington, D.C., and it was a resounding no. People simply are afraid of coming to America. And when I landed, before I landed and after I landed, there were so many tweets and whatnot. Are you okay? So fear, hate, and anger is rising, and there is something we need to do about it. But we need to understand this phenomena also. This is very important to handle any issue, that we understand what is going on. And it is also somewhat difficult when press cannot report properly. This is the White House press briefing room. And guess who was blocked? Institutions which people take a pride in, like BBC. Institutions like New York Times, not Washington Post, but CNN and LA Times. Major institutions were blocked from attending. And there is a difficulty in understanding the issues even in the mainstream media. And one of the critical connection in what is going on in increasing the fear, hate, and anger is a connection between war, terror, and Islamophobia. It's a chicken and egg situation. You cannot say which one is which one was the first, but it's a critical cycle which reinforces each other. You know, whether it's for terrorists or the soldiers in uniform, it's not easy to kill anyone. Human beings cannot do that. The only way it is facilitated is by demonizing the other. And that's how this cycle continues. And there is a good amount of research. For example, this research, I took it from a book which is funded by Pentagon itself that invasion is directly connected with terrorism. In Lebanon and Middle East and Afghanistan, there was zero suicide bombing before intervention. Now, this point is helpful because Trump also says, we wasted so much money and all of that. So it is important to understand the metrics. This is a research by Professor Robert Pape of the University of Chicago, and it was funded by Pentagon, and it is available online, free access, that before intervention and after intervention. This is also the same about drone attacks, that before drone attacks, there was nothing, and after drone attacks, it is substantial. And war, terror, Islamophobia cycle kills. According to Physicians for Social Responsibility, a Nobel Peace Laureate entity in Washington, D.C., 2 to 4 million people have died in last 15 years in 5 countries. And they say in 2 countries, only Afghanistan and Iraq, in last 10 years, 2 million people have died. Based on their research, other scholars have projected that altogether there are up to 4 million people who have died in last 15 years. 5 countries are completely devastated. And that is the one which created 65 million refugees. So connection of war and terror is the one which is forcing people to run away wherever their war is, wherever there is terror. And when we block those refugees from our doors, it makes us a sort of a country which is not, connected with our values. So it is also important to understand what is going on in the Muslim world. In a nutshell, it is a struggle for freedom, democracy, and Islam, which is causing dictators and the kings to bomb their own people, which started immediately after the war in Iraq. Arab Spring came into being. So this is what Arab Spring is all about. But because of that fear, hate, and anger, we have to do something. So we are going after terrorism in a strange way. Give an example, heart disease and a stroke, we spend $80 per victim. But we spend $400 million per victim on terrorism. When we are attached with that cycle and we don't understand it properly, we may have difficulty breaking that cycle. It is also important to realize there is a network of people who are just focused on creating hate. These are those people. They have $200 million according to IRS returns. This gentleman has always, Robert Spencer, always some of his books as bestseller on Amazon.com, full of hate. This is the gentleman, Frank Gaffney, who did the fake survey on which President Trump decided to have Muslim registry. David Yerushalmi has presented 110 laws in 34 states. And David Horowitz, he goes after Muslim students in the campus. So turning war on terror into war on Islam is a product of Islamophobes. It was their goal that, oh no, it is not the extremists, it's not the terrorists, which rest of the America was saying. They started saying, no, it is the Islam which is the problem. And they have their preachers who go online and preach on those messages that had resulted in 173 attacks on the mosque. Among those attacks, last 1 month, 16 mosques have been actually attacked. Many mosques have received, threats, as 100 synagogues have received. And now these Islamophobes who used to say Islam is the problem, not the terrorist. So these Islamophobes Now there are students who buy into that argument are there. Mr. Miller is the director of policy at White House. He wrote the law about executive order banning Muslims. Mr. Sessions, who is supposed to implement our laws to protect Americans in violation of their civil rights, he actually is mentor of Mr. Miller and Mr. Bennett. All of them have published, written, and spoken that Islam is the problem, not terrorists. If that thesis is accepted, which was rejected by not only Bush administration, Obama administration, but now the new chief of the national security has also rejected that particular statement. So what Islamophobia does is it dehumanizes Muslims, allows them to be killed through war or other means. In last 3 weeks, 7 people have been murdered because they were deemed to be Muslims, and 23 people have been injured in these attacks. And then it blames the victims. So strategy number 1, that we should have a name for this new hate. Islamophobes don't like to have a name, and they say, no, it is really real fear we have about Islam and Muslims. But as I will show you later on, that it is not real, and that's why it is a phobia. Here's one example. It's the statistics which was published in Washington Post of 2015 data. And all the blue dots are where the mass shootings took place, based on how many people died. 10 people, meaning a larger circle. And only the red dots represent where any Muslims were involved in mass shooting in the United States. And as you can see, in last 5 years, according to the statistics provided by our own government, people who have died of terrorism in America in the last 5-year average is 4.6, as compared to dog attacks, which is 31.2. So fear is somewhat irrational, but because of the news and unchecked media and the public policy, it looks like whatever is happening in the Middle East is actually happening on our streets. And we'll say, oh, we must protect America. That's where the ban and the idea of Muslim registry is coming from. Unrealistic fear of what is happening out there. Strategy number 2, help Muslim community amplify their voices against war and terror. Muslim voices are not on TV. Even those people who are standing up against the ban, they will not bring Muslims and Muslim experts. Muslims are one of the most educated communities in America, but their voices are not there. And one of the major charges, which President Trump also said, that Muslims don't condemn terrorism. Actually, he says that Muslims were cheering when buildings went down on 9/11. Absolutely untrue. Muslims condemn terrorism 5 times a day. Actually, it's a 6th pillar of Islam that you keep doing it, but nobody's listening. So help us in that area. These brochures are available, which Muslims have produced, and all churches, synagogues, schools, campuses, it is freely available. All you have to do is call 1-800-432-4262. That is 800-432-4262, and receive free copies of these brochures for distribution wherever you want to do. We also have come up in a new way of conveying what we think of ISIS. Here, ISIS, you suck. And that's by actual Muslims and your neighbors. So we did that in Chicago, we did that in Miami and Phoenix, and there was tremendous response. Strategy number 3, build a One America Registry to resist Muslim registry. You know, people say, what does it mean? Nobody knows what it means actually. but the the Trump administration and its allies have referred to Japanese registry. That is true. Before Japanese were sent to detention camp, there was a registry they were required. Even in Nazi Germany, Jews from Poland, Jews from other states and neighboring countries who were in Germany, they were required to register and register their properties and whatnot, and that was the beginning. So word registry brings a whole lot of real memory and historical precedence, which is being used by Trump administration at this moment. He says Muslims in America should be treated no differently than sex offenders. Muslims actually are more peaceful than their neighbors in America. Actually, if you need some statistics in that area, Google my article on Huffington Post, which says Muslims more peaceful than their neighbors. And you will be surprised with these statistics. And wherever Muslims move in, property values go up. Unfortunately, parking fees also go up, and neighborhoods become cleaner. There are more Muslim physicians, 10 times more Muslim physicians than Muslim proportion in American population. So he says that Muslim must be registered, Muslim should be tracked, and he says he will absolutely require Muslim to register. So America already has a building movement, and these are the images of the first Women March, and we need to be part of that movement. So for that reason, there is a 3-month intersectional plan which we are proposing, focus on Muslim registry and push back in March. April, focus on climate change. There are going to be major marches. May, focus on Latino rights, labor rights, and immigration rights. One American Registry essentially is to preempt Muslim registry. And in the Senate already, there is a bill called S-54, which prohibits any registry based on faith of a person or national origin or immigration status. And that idea has been around. Madam Albright says that she learned that she was a Jewish before she was a Catholic and before she was Episcopal, and now she wants to register as a Muslim in solidarity. But we don't need to reach there. There are many people saying that. We don't need to take America that backward. We need to preempt the whole idea of Muslim registry, and that's where this thing comes in. So promoting One America Registry by posting it all over, tweeting about it, and sharing on social media, putting it, if you have organizational newsletter, always at the bottom of your newsletter, you can have an icon linked to One America Registry, and people can go there whenever they see that. Link it from your website. And then I would say, once you register on One America Registry, there is a URL which tells you 5 things you can do. And among 5 things you can do is a campaign to give 5 minutes a day. Now, why it is important? This thing, hate took its time to build up. After 9/11, 2 months after 9/11 tragedy and terrorist attacks, a survey was done. 59% of America has positive opinion of Islam and Muslims. Now, only 17% have positive opinion. Trump didn't create this hate. He didn't invent it. He was a smart seller of his thing, taking a ride on the fear and hate which exist. So it is going to take a long time. And for that reason, if you can give more time, great. But if you are too busy and 10,000 things to do, as all of us do in life, spare 5 minutes a day. And you will find on our website what you can do. And if you have signed up, you will receive within a week in your mailbox 30 things. And you recycle that 1 thing a day. Each of those items just takes 5 minutes. Actually, if you are efficient, You may be able to do it in 3 minutes, but maybe I will take slightly longer. Strategy number 4, become a better neighbor. You know, in this current situation, and being at the Charter for Compassion's conference, it is important to go deep in our humanity. Or if you are a faith-based person participating here, think of our own traditions, importance of neighbors, being your brother's neighbor. And Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, with whom I follow, says that you cannot be a believer unless you expect for your neighbors what you expect for yourself. So several million people in America right now are really living in fear. Latinos and Muslims and immigrants, African Americans and women, whole lot of people are fearful. Let's hold hands of your neighbors. If you haven't knocked on their door, just knock and say, well, nothing, just came to say hello to you. I mean, what happened to this good old tradition which all of us knew? So neighborly connection is needed. When you're cooking something special, maybe cook a little extra and share that meal with your neighbor. And also cross those dividing political lines. You know, us against them hysteria is not going to help. We need to win over people, people of compassion, people of faith. Hey, there are religions who teach people how to convert other people. Let's convert our others to on our side. And best way to convert is say hello, salam, peace, have a smiling face. Even when you're talking, you know, a smile is an amazing thing. And I have seen many people on my Facebook newsfeed. If you believe this, unfriend me. Delete that, please. Don't unfriend people because they hold different point of view. Even if they use bad vocabulary, it still connect. Let me tell you this. Since I am a public person, I write substantially, I receive death threats. Well, you know, I don't, trust me, I don't enjoy those, but I do receive death threats. And guess what? Each person who sends me a death threat, I respond to them. It turns out 80–90% people are chickens, so their email address is fake and I cannot connect. But there are 10–20 naive people who do write from their real email address, sending a death threat to me based on my ideas, my views, and me being a Muslim. And when I respond, within 2–3 emails, trust me, that they apologize. Can you apologize after giving somebody a death threat? But that's what human beings are. They may be watching, Googling some nonsense and got angry watching Fox or something. But when you connect as a human being, there is an opening. So cross that dividing line in churches and synagogues and every schools and whatnot, and try to connect with the other being. We may not win them over, but we'll establish our humanity and a connection. And I have seen people change their mind. And I'm absolutely sure you will agree with me that people do change their mind. Strategy number 5, push your representatives. You know, elections were not yesterday. Elections are coming up this year. Election will come next year too. So get on their case. Just show up. Follow up. Ask a question, whom should I follow up with? There is a Senate Resolution 54 pushing against the hate. There is a resolution going by Ted Cruz, which wants to ban Muslim organizations, major Muslim entities. Attacks are already happening, which people don't recognize. Muhammad Ali's son and his former wife was blocked from entering and detained. Khizr Khan cannot go to Canada. A best children's writer from Australia, nothing to do with Islam and Muslim, detained for 10 hours on LA airport. For God's sake, there are things which are going around. And these representatives, they better get their act together. And it will only happen if you are on their case. And there is no better website which guides you how to be on their case is indivisibleguides.com, indivisibleguide.com. This is the Bible to win over and make sure your point of view is heard. It's a critical resource, and they are member of our coalition as well. Strategy number 6. Since a long battle, it's not going to be won by anger and we getting up and making our life miserable, watching all the wrong television and saying, what in the world is going on? Can I break my screen? No, it will not work like that. It's a long struggle. Laugh a little, enjoy life, and there is much more to laugh about. For example, this website, I'd like you to go there. War on Irrational Fear. For example, war on swimming, because 775 times more people die swimming than by terrorist attack in the United States. So we should have tanks on the beaches, and all these people should be blocked from killing themselves. Is anybody smiling there? Well, there's somebody is. So America's war on spotty, dogs. They have been killing more people than terrorists in our country. So go on war on irrational fear, and anytime you like a comedian making sensible point, share. They are the leaders who are going to let us live and take America forward, liberating it from fear, hate, and anger. We cannot allow ourselves to be drowned. And when you think you have laughed enough, let's get serious. One of the things which we need to build on is on our Constitution and American values. This is extremely important strategy. And nobody has been a prophet of that strategy than this gentleman, Khizr Khan, and his wife, who said, have you read this Constitution? And that is a document which is going to be very helpful. You should have 10 copies of that also. Our partner, ACLU, who is one of the major partners of One America Coalition, they provide free copies, and maybe you should donate something to them. A U.S. Constitution, you can call and get a copy, read for yourself, especially the Bill of Rights. So whatever your talking points are, Constitution and American values must be a part of that. And remember this, fear is real, danger is real. So our effort should be real also. How real it is? GOP is just short of one more house before they can call the Constitutional Convention, prevail on the amendments in the Constitutional Convention. I know it takes a whole lot to change the Constitution, but after a long period of time, GOP is short of one house before they can call the Constitutional Convention, and the Constitution you carry in your pocket may be changed. Take it to Islamophobes. These guys are becoming millionaires. Universities, colleges, synagogues, and churches are inviting them, and they are charging tens of thousands of dollars. And that's not only making them rich, but they are becoming more mainstream and more mainstream. They need to be treated like KKK, that they have freedom of speech, but we show up. We should not allow the public funds and public university platforms and the mainstream to be available to them unchallenged. So speak out, speak up, and let it be known that this is not who America is. Silence is dangerous. At this moment, silence is the real enemy. Find your message. What is your message? Pick up your 1 or 2 liners, learn how to deliver it, and then keep repeating it. Don't change your message often. Learn how to figure out what is your message, learn how to deliver it with smile, with full politeness, no F words, but be firm. You could be smiling and firm, polite and firm. And then keep repeating your message. Don't keep changing the message all the time. Keep repeating that message. That's very important. And I would also say don't become debunk hate lies, fake news by repeating it. All the research shows that's very dangerous. That establishes that fake news. Avoid repeating that and give the positive spin. What is the positive direction? Don't repeat the lies and don't repeat the hate which is being coined finally. And television, if you're going to keep listening, it will increase your blood pressure. You will feel angry. So look for the news which align with you and don't waste time. Well, I'm not giving you a list of which channels to watch, but don't waste your time. Live with good people and good connection and present it positively. Strategy number 9 is strengthen the anti-war movement to break this cycle of war, terror, and Islamophobia. Unfortunately, a lot of us are against war, except that we do not have a strong anti-war movement. We do not have a strong peace movement in this country. And that's what we need. We need to break this cycle. Otherwise, we'll keep depleting our funds and keep getting angry about it. And the last strategy is the most important for me, that pray. Pray to liberate America from fear, hate, and anger. Pray for your neighbors. Prayer is nothing but a statement of our resolve. Well, I would not say prayer is nothing. Prayer is something great. But it's also a statement of our resolve, of our passion. If we pray for something, we are focusing on something. If we focus on something, it's highly likely we'll devote our time and our resources for it. So join One America Coalition if you haven't done so. Register if you haven't done so. And these were the 10 things which I have in mind. And if there are any things which you think we need to do, let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There is a question, this is Reed, and there is a question, Imam, about the statistic that you mentioned about $400 million spent per individual for terrorist attacks. Is that for each individual killed that we spend $400 million?
Yes. Each individual killed in the United States. So total money spent on war and terror divided by the people killed in the United States.
And then there was another caller or viewer who wonders if we can all receive a copy of this PowerPoint with the report that we're going to send out.
You have recorded that, right?
Yes, it will be in the video that we send out.
All the recording, because you see the PowerPoint independent of what I am saying is not going to make sense. So go for what Charter of Compassion is going to provide in terms of recording. Actually, we will make that recording, if it's okay with you, available on oneamericaregistry.com as well.
Absolutely. We'll put it up on YouTube, and we can all embed it in our sites. Great. And then the last thing, Molly notes that she loves the brilliant quote from you that fear is real. Our response should be real also.
Oh, I appreciate that. And should I trademark that?
Okay. Now I'd like to turn to Marilyn for a minute. Marilyn Turkovich. She is the director of the Charter for Compassion International. Marilyn started with the Charter in late 2013 as education director, and since that time has moved into additional roles. She's had a number of them at CCI. Prior to her current role, she was the director of Voices in Wartime, and her professional background has been primarily in higher education, and most specifically in directing teacher training programs for the Associated Colleges of the Midwest, and chairing Columbia College in Chicago's master's program in multicultural and global education. It is my pleasure to turn over the video and the microphone here to Marilyn.
Good day, everyone. And it was a joy to have Imam Malik give his PowerPoint presentation. And I want to follow up maybe at a 30,000 foot level and then come down as close to the ground as possible. and talk a moment about the One American Registry and the importance it is for us to get as many names on that, not only our own, but others within our immediate community. And while the One American Coalition is about helping to create a network of organizations who are willing to defend civil liberties and the essence of the Constitution, the registry's intent is to ask people to take a stand against policies and actions that go against the inhumane treatment of others, and may reflect past executive orders that have allowed for the internment of Japanese and the policies waged against our First Peoples here in the United States. This is an invitation that's being made to you by the One American Registry, the One American Coalition, the Charter for Compassion, and all of the other organizations that are joining us in this. And what we want to do is we want to change the paradigm by sharing stories. And if we hear another story and emphasize with the storyteller, chances are we're going to be able to change the path that we're traveling. And when people receive the newsletter announcing this webinar, the title was "Change the Conversation, Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life." That was a quote from Peter Block. Imam Malik talked a great deal about some of the things that have been happening in our country, and I want to maybe extend that a little bit more. The Southern Poverty Law Center, which so many of us count on for information, released that 867 cases of hateful harassment and intimidation in the United States occurred in the first 10 days after the November 8th election. This is really astounding when you think about it, because it implies that some type of license to do harm to others was issued without any of us really considering it at the moment. There's a group calling itself Americans for a Better Way, and they've sent copies of a letter to at least 5 California mosques calling Muslims a vile and filthy people and advocating for genocide. As of February 28th, 75 centers and 8 Jewish schools across the country have received at least 100 bomb threats. And we know that that number is continuing to rise. Again, that license that's there for others to do harm to others. In Seattle and across the country, actually, we are finding reports of Mexican Americans who are part of the DACA process that was initiated under President Obama's presidency, have been picked up and have been retained. And as I said, here in Seattle, we have a young man, a 25-year-old Mexican immigrant who has been in custody since mid-February. And I think this one is a fact that is really very startling. But in Texas State University, flyers depicting men in camouflage wielding guns and American flags were put up in men's restrooms announcing it is time to organize tar and feather vigilante squads and go arrest and torture deviant university leaders spouting off that diversity garbage. And these are all really horrendous events and actions. And it appears that our country is divided more so than many of us have seen. It is up to us to continue to tell these stories, not only stories of hatred and harmful acts, but also compassionate acts in action, events that are that are happening across this country. And as long as we don't hear these stories, we can't really imagine that we are working towards mending and healing our troubled nation. And as Imam Malik indicated, this fear is not only in the United States. The day after the election, the charter received over 1,500 pieces of mail. Most of it was mail saying, you know, maybe it's time for us to be a compassionate city. Maybe it's time that we did something that would change the equation. And we continue to get huge numbers of mail each day. And it's not only from the United States. My educated guess is that about 40% of this mail is coming from other places in the world. So in the next week or so, the One American Coalition and Registry is going to add a new feature to the website. And you can be sure that the Charter for Compassion will take advantage of it as well. But it's going to be one story. So when you visit the coalition website, you're going to see the One American Coalition up in the navigation bar, the One Registry, and then you're going to see one story. And so we want you to come back to that site frequently and to consider posting a story. It could be a synopsis of a story that's from your community. You could have learned about it by reading the local paper. You might have encountered people who've had the experience. And so please, you know, let's get those stories out. Another part, and Imam Malik referred to it, is those 5 minutes a day. What can you do? Well, certainly contact your legislators. Keep those lines going as busy as they possibly can be. And that means not only in Washington, D.C., but that means in your state as well. Let your legislators know what you think about the proposed Muslim ban. Promote this registry as much as you can. It's one thing for you to sign it, but for you to get your neighbors to sign it, your colleagues and your family, that's an important thing. Organize a teach-in about what is going on, about learning about Muslims, learning about the law. And if you have any ideas, you know, the Charter and One America Coalition Registry is open to hearing them and working with you. You can use our platform as we move forward to make certain that we are standing up, letting our voice be known, and that we are also about healing and about mending what we're all about. One of the other things that just really came to mind when Imam Malik was talking about the Constitution and ACLU is, you know, wouldn't it be an incredible gesture if PTAs and other school organizations would make certain that every student from middle school on up had a copy, a small copy of the Constitution, the same way that Mr. Khan was able to produce it. Our students should be able to have a copy and to read it, for educators to go through, you know, not all at once, but daily, kind of look at it and read it. I think that would be an incredible gift to schools. Another thing I believe that that you can do is to organize interfaith gatherings, visit with one another, celebrate with one another, and learn from one another. This is one of the best ways, I think, that we can really move ourselves forward in the healing process. And for anyone who's on this call, who is a part of a Compassionate City initiative, this is the time to seriously consider adding this issue to the work that you're doing. And if you're not part of the Compassionate City movement, let us know if you're interested in becoming a part. We have a lot of cities within the United States. We have organizers who can help mentor, and we at the Charter are ready to sit down and talk with you using our Zoom platform here. Don't forget, when you go to the One American Coalition, you're going to see a large group of individuals, organizations that are part of the coalition. Add your name if you're part of an organization to that list. Let's keep it growing. And finally, Reed, if you put up the slide from one of our partners, this is Films for the Planet, and we will make certain we'll put this in a report. These are films, A Collective Heart of Democracy, and it's a series that you can do locally and use as discussion starters, and we'll make certain that you get more information about Collective Heart on Democracy. So finally, One American Registry believes that telling our stories will actually change the way that we understand one another and the way that we live together. We believe that our stories have the power of changing the conversation of our American community. And certainly, this is not limited to the United States. We know that our brothers and sisters in the United Kingdom, with the passage of Brexit, have presented an incredible challenge. We know that there are upcoming elections, especially in France and the Netherlands and a few other countries in Europe. The conversations are getting very deep, and these are extremely important times for us all to not remain silent. I remember when I was a college student, on my wall, there was a quote by Harvey Cox, who I believe was a theologian at Yale. And the quote said, "Not to decide is to decide." So let's scratch out the knot. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. There are a couple of questions. One was about interfaith activities and the challenges of religion and dealing with bias in religion. Could you comment a little bit about that?
Okay, I think I saw that full question, and it was yeah, I think that you're right. Of course, it's not so much that the religious text has a bias, because I think that we sometimes think that that Muslim, the Quran contains, and this is really something that Malik should be addressing, but I mean, the Quran is a book of peace. There are stories, obviously, that are of destruction in the Bible, but is it not, that sometimes I'm kind of going back to all the way back to Rihanna Eisler and her wonderful book, The Chalice and the Blade, where she begins to help us understand that in the very beginning of what we now call human history, or the recording of human history, that there was much more of a partnership way people dealt with one another, and that there was obviously an evolution towards much more destruction and reaction to people. And I think that the more that interfaith communities begin to come together and to get to know one another, the person of one another, and get to experience the services of one another and the text of one another, I think looking at the Golden Rule, starts out in China with Confucius and Lao Tzu, but it is in every single religion. The words are very similar, and certainly the intent is very similar. And so that it's really the basis of the Charter for Compassion. Imam, do you want to say anything more about this?
I think you're right. You see, the Quran or other teachings reflect their time and their age, and human beings continue to interpret it for their times. And that's where sometimes people get confused. Recently, there was a big data analysis is a big thing nowadays. So in Europe, in London, someone fed the whole Bible and the whole Quran and came up with the results that Quran is much more merciful than the Bible. So not only uses the word more, but the vocabulary. Still, it doesn't, it's not something which satisfied me. I think these guidance from God are there to make us better human beings. And in each of our entities, each of our faith or the communities we work with, we need to strive to be a better human beings. And that will bridge the gap of understanding. And human beings are human beings. Some of them are literalist in all faith communities. Some of them take things to extremes. And that's why, crossing that bridge of divide is important. So we win over people on the side of compassion, which is the core teachings. In terms of Quran, for example, a whole lot of things have been said, but the best thing is written by Karen Armstrong after 9/11 on a Time magazine, which is the inspiration behind Charter of Compassion. And she says that, the Prophet Muhammad's campaign was for peace and justice. It was a peace movement. And when people came attacking his peace sanctuary, only then God asked people to stand up and defend themselves. Total warfare, actual battle in the life of Prophet was 6 days, actually 6 afternoons. And total number of people who unfortunately died from both sides to defend that attack as well as attackers are less than 300. That's where whole imagination in Western Orientalist discourse comes in, that Islam is spread through sword. That's the totality of that reality, statistically speaking. So sometimes the myths become larger and fake news seems real. And that's why learning and developing information for ourselves is critical.
One of the people who was on the chat happened to mention that Karen Armstrong's book, Fields of Blood, is a wonderful review of the idea that violence is assumed to be associated with religion, but it's usually the other way around. There's a violent impulse, and then religion is brought to bear as a way that individuals and communities can be encouraged to take up arms against each other. It's not the origin. And as we know from the Three Amigos, the interfaith team, while every religious tradition has some stain of violence and selfishness, contained within each of those major religions is also the antidote and the understanding that that is a failing of the core principles.
One of the things, Reid, we need to share with people, not on this particular topic, is that we announced there are going to be 2 other presenters. Professor John Esposito, he just texted me saying that he thought it is 1 hour earlier when he waited, and he somehow didn't see the email which we sent. And Bob Thompson, who is co-chair of One America Coalition along with Marilyn and myself, he's flying for his father's funeral. And that's why you have 2 of us instead of 4 of us, as we promised.
Thank you very much for that. Are there any other comments that we might want to make here about the next steps? I know that you gave us wonderful advice about the next steps that we can do by, first of all, going to the One America Coalition website. And of course, we'll send out all the links to everybody who registered.
I would conclude by saying just become a champion of One America Registry. Register everyone, every party you go to, open up the register, open up your laptop, take laptop to your party and have people sign up right then and there. I think don't delay it, and I think we will become a movement and participate in overall movement in the country to take our country forward, not backward.